Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. I started my reading week with 6 volumes 13 through 18, of Mission Yozakura Family by Hitsuji Gondaira. Mission Yozakura Family is about a young man named Taiyo, who, years before the series began, lost his family in an accident. During his years of bereavement, his rock, his closest support, was his childhood friend Mutsumi Yozakura. When the series begins, Taiyo learns that Mutsumi is the head of the Yozakura family, a family of super spies. He learns this because Mutsumi's oldest brother, Eiichiro, has an unhealthy obsession with his younger sister, and this leads him to attempt to murder Taiyo. Eiichiro and Mutsumi's other siblings intervene and try to protect Taiyo from Eiichiro. However, the only way to successfully protect Taiyo is for him to marry Mutsumi and become the patriarch of the family. In each generation of Yozakura, most of the children have some form of superpower, except for one. This mundane Yozakura becomes the head of that generation, the head of family for that generation, and becomes the mother for the next generation of Yozakura. In the series so far, all of the family heads have been women. So in addition to marrying Mutsumi, Taiyo also begins to train as a spy to not only protect Mutsumi from her enemies, but also to help the family business. In these 6 volumes, Taiyo and Mutsumi and the rest of the Yozakura family are grappling with trying to figure out what exactly it is that Momo, the patriarch of their father, is after. He was believed killed alongside their mother when Tenpopo attacked the Yozakura family mansion years before the series began. And so these volumes see the family trying to figure out Momo's agenda of fighting off the assaults from a corrupted previous head of the family, and ultimately confronting and defeating Momo himself at the very end of these volumes, which was amazing. I really enjoyed these 6 volumes. Mission Yozakura Family is a lot of fun. Not only do many of the chapters push the narrative along, but there are also several chapters that bring levity to the story, that bring a lot of humor. So examples from volume 14 are this volume begins with the family having a film festival where each member of the family selects a movie according to their taste. And it is quite character driven and humorous. And then the following chapter is about Shinzo entering a bodybuilding contest so that his sister Shion can get the prize that would allow her to construct a more powerful computer so that they can track down their father. So here's some images. It is a lot of fun. Oh yeah, and in this volume, they have they're going through the house to clean it up, and a lot of humor there as well. So, a lot of fun, lots of fun. Looking forward to volume 19, which comes out, I think, in October. It's either October or November. Maybe October and December. I'll need to check back with Viz to see if they have their forthcoming calendar. Anyway, moving on. So on Sunday, I read 3 volumes of One Piece by Eiichiro Oda, volumes 46 through 48 in this omnibus edition. So, One Piece is about a young man named Monkey D. Luffy, who is, well, the young man at the bottom of these pictures. When he was a child, his home village was a destination for a pirate crew led by red-haired Shanks. Luffy served as something of a mascot for these pirates, and Luffy wished to sail out to sea with them. On the penultimate visit of the red-haired pirates to Luffy's hometown, Luffy ate a devil fruit, a magical fruit that grants its consumer superhuman abilities. In Luffy's case, it made him a rubber man. His body became super elastic. Think Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four. 10 years after the last visit of the red-haired pirates, Luffy leaves his hometown to become a pirate and form a crew to search out the One Piece, a fabled treasure that will allow its discoverer to become king of the pirates. So gradually, Luffy builds a crew and has adventures and makes a name for himself. Thriller Bark is a relatively short saga in which Luffy and the crew, which now includes Frankie, the shipwright who built the Straw Hats' new ship, the Thousand Sunny, sailing towards Fisherman Island. However, they enter into a strange sort of Bermuda Triangle-esque location called the Florian Triangle, where they discover a ruined ship with only one occupant, a living skeleton named Brooke. Later, the Thousand Sunny encounters a massive floating pirate ship called Thriller Bark, which is captained by a warlord of the sea, a government-sponsored pirate who targets other pirates. And this warlord of the sea is named Gecko Moria, whose gimmick it is to create zombies. So Thriller Bark, while being a massive pirate ship, is also designed very much like a haunted house or haunted mansion. And Gecko Moria has developed a way to create zombies that he powers by stealing the shadows of his victims. And so the Straw Hats and Brooke must escape Thriller Bark and defeat Gecko Moria. And so these 3 volumes largely deal with getting captured by Thriller Bark and trying to defeat both the living members of Gecko Moria's crew as well as the not-so-alive members of the crew, in an attempt to both escape and to also reclaim their missing shadows. I really enjoyed these 3 volumes, and I'm rather bummed that I did not read 3 more volumes on Sunday. For whatever reason, the last 2 volumes, in this case it would be omnibus volumes that I've read I basically only managed one of these in a weekend rather than two as I had hoped. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. Why One Piece reads relatively slowly for me compared to other manga series. Could it be that there are more chapters per volume? Could it be that this series is heavier on dialogue and exposition? I'm not entirely sure. But I had a lot of fun with it. So let me see if I can find a picture of Thriller Bark. Okay, so this is the haunted mansion that is on Thriller Bark. Yeah. And here are some zombies. Okay, so there's a bit of the super ship. Oh, okay, there's a better look of it. So, yeah, a lot of fun. Now, moving on, I started September focusing on Shorty September, and I read 2 books. Monday through Wednesday, I read Apollonius of Rhodes' The Voyage of Argo, also known as the Argonautica. This version is a prose translation by Rieu. Hoping I pronounced that last name correctly. So, Jason and the Argonauts, or the Argonautica, is about a young man named Jason, who is the rightful king of the city-state of Iolcus. His uncle Pelias has usurped the throne and was warned by Oracle to beware somebody with only one sandal. And when he met Jason, he only had one sandal. So Pelias asks Jason what he would do if he were told that somebody was going to come and kill him. And Jason said, well, I'd send that person out on an impossible quest to claim the Golden Fleece. So Pelias then says, Jason, go find the Golden Fleece, which was located in the kingdom of Ea, which has been identified with Colchis, which is in what is now Georgia. So Jason gathers a crew of Greek heroes of the time, including Heracles. And he gets a ship called the Argo, and so they sail out, have some adventures along the Mediterranean, the eastern Mediterranean, before they enter into the Black Sea and work their way to Colchis. Some of their adventures at this time include the island of Lemnos, the Clashing Rocks, rescuing Phineas from the Harpies, and so on and so forth. So once they get to Colchis, they approach the king. Aeetes is a royal jerk, much more so than Pelias. Well, they're both royal jerks, but Aeetes is nuts. Medea, his daughter, falls in love with Jason thanks to the machinations of Hera, and so she aids Jason in accomplishing the impossible task that Aeetes set in order for him to give Jason the Golden Fleece. Jason accomplishes this task, and Medea, realizing that her father has figured out that she helped him, flees Colchis along with her nephews, and they steal the Golden Fleece and flee with Jason. And so then they travel around the Black Sea and some mythical lands to try to get back to Greece. During this return journey, Medea encompasses the death of her brother Absyrtus, and they have to go to the Isle of Circe, her aunt, to be absolved of. Her and Jason have to go to the Isle of Circe to be absolved of the murder. And so the story ends shortly before they actually reach Iolcus. So this book had ticked a number of boxes for Shorty September. Grandpa Shorts, and that I have had this book for going on 19 years. Fashionista Shorts, because it is a work in translation. And also Half and Half Shorts, which is read a book and then watch the film adaptation. And on Wednesday, I watched the 1963 Jason and the Argonauts from Ray Harryhausen, which I have to say I did not enjoy nearly as much as I remember the last few times I've watched that movie. Anyway, so what did I make of the Voyage of the Argo? Well, it's okay. The narrative itself is a bit dull and lifeless, and I'm not entirely sure if it's the translation. This is a prose translation, and I have, when I've read other works of Greek literature in prose translation, that they haven't really worked as well as other translations that I have read in poetry. So I'm thinking maybe I should hunt down a translation of the Argonautica in poetic translation rather than this prose translation. But at the same time, there's a lot about the Argonautica that is it comes off more as a summary than as a full-fledged epic, which, given that the Argonautica is, in this translation, barely, not even 170 pages compared to the Iliad and the Odyssey being twice, if not three times the size. It's not much meat here, so it is very much comes off as a summary. And the characterizations, most of the characters don't really come off as fully realized characters, the lone exception being Medea and Jason. So I'm happy I finally got around to reading the Argonautica, but I'm also disappointed and will probably look for a better translation in the future. Put this over here. So the second, would it be more comfortable if I did it in this hand? Not really, but so the second book I read so far in September is Frisk by Dennis Cooper. This is a Belle redemption, and it was a successful Belle redemption. So Frisk is much like the rest of Dennis Cooper's work, somewhat weird. So the best way I can describe this plot or characterize this plot is that the novel focuses on a man named Dennis. This novel is part of the semi-autobiographical Miles cycle. So in some ways, this is a semi-autobiographical take on Dennis Cooper himself. So the novel focuses on Dennis from his late teens to his early 30s. And Dennis, like Dennis Cooper himself, possibly, and certainly a lot of other Dennis Cooper characters, has some extreme kinks. In this Dennis's case, it's around the sex and death. The novel plays with whether or not at some point Dennis actually engages in this and becomes a serial killer. But it comes out that, spoiler alert, no, he does not. He basically keeps everything in the realm of fantasy. And so the novel is told in 6 parts with like a bookend little prologue, epilogue that looks at Dennis's relationships and his growing psychosis or whatever the hell it is. The novel is weird, and I don't think it's particularly good. For one thing, the novel is narrated by Dennis. However, there are parts of the novel that Dennis could have no knowledge of. So to what extent is the novel itself told by Dennis within being a novel told by Dennis? Doesn't quite work out. And it's very choppy in a lot of places, and a lot of the characters I don't think are very well realized. So I'm not a huge fan of this book, even though I did manage to read it. So how does this match up to Shorty September? It is only 128 pages after all. So this book is also Grandpa Shorts. I've had this book for 19 years, exactly, or over 19 years. I picked it up when I was in Portland, Oregon, back in 2006. And it also works for the Rip Shorts, which was thriller, horror, mystery, even though it's kind of a horror novel. It's kind of not. It kind of presents itself as a horror novel, or a literary horror novel or something, even though it's one of those that basically it was all just a fantasy. Anyway, so I think that's about it for this one. So I'm going to go and put it down because holding that book like that is really killer on my hands. Anyway, so what am I planning on reading this coming reading week? Well, there are the 8 August volumes of manga that I pre-ordered from Book People. I will read all 8 of them tomorrow. And then on Sunday, I will read 3 volumes of poetry, including Within the Sweet Noise of Life by Sandro Penna, translated from the Italian by Alexander Booth, Flyover Country by Austin Smith, and Stars in My Eyes by Edward Field. Oh yeah, Frisk might also be the one from the 70s or 80s. I'm not entirely sure if the book came out in 1989 or 1990. But anyway. So, those 2 volumes of poetry. And then, over the course of the work week, I will start on Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. And then try to continue on with The Hours by Michael Cunningham. And then maybe Theory and Practice by Michelle DeCruster. Even though I'm pretty sure either The Hours or certainly Theory and Practice I probably won't get to until the next reading week, which I will report on next week. So that's my plan for next week. Sorry for the lack of videos this week. I had hoped to make more videos, but unfortunately they didn't quite turn out. So hopefully I can manage to get some of them done next week. Wish me luck. Anyway, BookTube, I will probably be back tomorrow with the 8 August volumes of manga, because I'm pretty sure talking about them plus the poetry and then however much of the stuff on Virginia Woolf I get to probably will make next weekly reads fairly long. But I'll decide that tomorrow, and if I don't make that separate video, then expect a fairly longer weekly reads on next Friday, even though my weekly reads do normally go fairly long. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, BookTube, until I see you next time, thank you, have a great evening and weekend, and stay safe.